I almost gave up reviewing this thing. I'm Real Gion and welcome to the channel. Right off the bat, you gotta love that orange. This is my first controller in my controller reviewing career that has macro buttons. That's actually pretty cool in theory. The logo buttons under the D-pad is actually another macro button. You get the typical Xbox layout. It's a popular layout and it works, so I understand why they went with it. In terms of this one comparing to the first one, the only real difference is the two macro buttons next to the face buttons. Speaking about the face buttons, unfortunately they don't light up, but I guess they're doing that to save battery life. There are 4 shoulder buttons on top, which is nice because some controllers don't have that for some odd reason. You get the select and start buttons under the analog stick, which is an easier reach than I initially thought. About that orange, it doesn't really carry through, so the back of the controller is a dark shade of blue. There's the power switch on the side of the controller, which is nice because for some reason I feel more confident when a controller has a switch rather than just holding the power button, so this is pretty nice. The face buttons feel not as tactile as I would like. The shoulder buttons are great in terms of tactility and they click, which is awesome. The D-pad feels okay. It doesn't feel as precise and as accurate as I would have liked. The same can be said with the analog stick. In fact, I think the analog stick feels like they're all over the place. There are multiple occasions when I would push up and ended up moving up in a different direction at the same time. So like up left or up right or something like that. The analog stick feels like they're just overly sensitive, and this is terrible, especially if you're playing games that would require you to be accurate. Also, the analog stick doesn't click, but it makes up for it with macro buttons. The macro buttons feel like better face buttons. They're more tactile and they're more direct. In terms of latency, everything works, which is something that deserves mentioning because I had controllers in the past where this was not the case. But there is a giant but. The way how it works sucks. So I don't think this controller have X input, but if it does, let me know and let me know how to turn it on because I have to download the app and assign the face buttons to the touchpad. The best example is probably what you're seeing right now with Call of Duty. Not sure if the camera can pick this up well, but there are these little button icons on top of the touch function and it would be used in place of the touch functions. Doing this is fine, but it makes it more complicated than it should be because you now have to go through an app to get the controller to work. The upside is that games that would normally does not work with a controller will now work. So I think this controller is probably in a class of 1 because I do not know another controller that actually has this ability. This controller can hold a Note 9 with a case, so I'm guessing if your phone's 6.4 inches or less, it should work pretty well. It does a pretty decent job at holding the phone in place. I would say if I were to take off the case, it wouldn't slip as much and it's pretty normal, and I think I may have had a pretty big phone. Then again, newer phones now you can say that my phone is pretty small. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the clamp, if you can call it that. So according to this review site, the controller has a 300 milliamp battery, can last up to 80 freaking hours, which is a really long time, so I don't think you have to worry about charging it if you plan on taking long trips. Then again, a micro USB cable and a battery pack should do the trick anyways. In terms of the controller actually lasting that long, to be honest, I don't know because I only used the controller for maybe an hour a day since I got it. I spent about a week or 2 and I didn't game much because it's really annoying to set up every single time I try a new game or emulator. If you know an easier way, let me know. That would be so awesome. So I almost give up reviewing this thing due to the software. Up to this point, I just assumed that all the controllers are X input. I didn't even know X X input is a thing. So I had to find out the hard way, because this controller is kind of in a class of its own. It's hard to say whether or not to justify the price tag because you're kind of stuck with it. The controller is a loophole to play games that don't accept gamepads. This is a great side controller for those games. The question is, are you willing to pony up $50 for this ability? As for me, I mainly play emulator, so I'm not really affected by it, but for those that want to play with the latest, greatest games, quote unquote, without controller support, and you want to use a controller, then you pretty much have to get this one. And if that's you, there's a link down below. Anyways, like, subscribe, comment, click the bell for more content. You guys stay awesome.